Hey guys, welcome back for another in-depth character review. We've got a special guest today, Mr. Spider-Man himself, Ryan. How's it going, mate?
What is going on, buddy? I'm glad to be on. Glad to be talking about my favorite character.
I know we finally got some time together, and I didn't want to do Spider-Man without you, so I figure you are the guy for this. So, do you want to run through his stats real quick? I usually just start at the top and work my way down.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the stat line, it's pretty incredible. Especially for anybody that was disappointed with Corset Peter. You've got 6 stamina, long mover, obviously, size 2 and 5 threat. That's the big number.
Yep.
But let's not forget he's on that medium-sized base. So Angela style movement, long move on that is incredible.
So fast.
And then yeah, very very fast. And we'll talk about why he actually is the fastest character in the game in a minute. And 4-4-3 defense. So just exemplary physical and energy defense, and still really, really solid mystic defense. You know, a lot of times we see these big 4s on a character card, but they have a dud somewhere else, a 2 or even a 1 in the case of Carnage and Mysterio. But here, he's just got incredible defenses that only get better when we talk about some of his superpowers later.
He's just so strong. Plus, he's got a range 3 strike, which is huge. Anytime we see a range 3 on their builder, we know they're going to be probably flush with power, especially if it starts at 5 dice. So it gains power for each damage dealt. And it comes with a crit wild, I believe it is, for momentum, which basically just lets him choose another enemy character within 2 of the target character, place yourself within 1, and it's a throw. So it's awesome, right? The one point for this one is it's mandatory. So little downside, I think, but still extremely powerful.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting because you can I wouldn't say full control, but you can kind of control how you want this momentum, right? Like if you target somebody, if there isn't a valid target within 2, right? Um, you can't actually place him if there isn't another target. So
Yep.
hitting solo guys totally fine. Also, the likelihood of getting a crit in a wild on 5 dice is pretty low. It's like sub 20%. Now, when you add a web swing into the equation and other things, boosting it to 7 gets you actually closer up to 40 or 50% chance to get a momentum off. So you always want to be flexible with Peter in his Spider Strike and be aware of that momentum and how that will affect your placement and everything.
Absolutely. Then we've got a spender. It's actually a decently expensive spender coming in at 5, but range 2, 8 dice means it's really respectable. He gets a free advance on that, we've seen that on Corvus. It's always good, and just wild catch. After this attack is resolved, you may choose an interactive terrain feature size 2 or less within 3 and destroy it, and then they suffer a collision, which is just awesome. So little thing for that one is that you don't have to like throw it medium or throw it long. So you can pick something from, really just downtown and just blow it up and not have to deal with throwing it through characters or things like that.
No, more so than that, you get to do your medium advance before you throw. So even if there's no terrain around you within 3, you can advance medium and then pick something and destroy it and throw it. So you basically, I mean, if I just kind of show you what that looks like on the board here. Let's say Peter is right here, right? And we have, this big range 3 bubble right here. If I take this medium move and then do like another range 3 extension from that medium move plus his base, you basically, I'm at the dead center of the board here.
And you could be hitting someone down here with that.
Yeah, like if you are attacking like an enemy here, your range in which you're able to find a size 2 thing is you could throw a size 2 thing that's as far as that much away from you at someone who's right here.
Man, it's almost like trivial for him to do that. And just thematically, just seeing Spider-Man move back and just yeet this car from like downtown is going to be
100%.
really cool.
And getting just the math on that, getting a wild on 8 dice is upwards of 80%. So
it's pretty good.
It's really good, really really good. He doesn't. One thing we'll talk about is he actually only has three or four, depending, ways to spend his power. So this can be, you can get this off more often than you think. But when we get to the strategy section, we'll talk about how best to kind of use his power economy, because I think that you can fall into some traps with Amazing Spider-Man, and you might end up never using whatever a spider can, even though it is an incredible attack. 8 dice followed up by 3 auto damage is nothing to sniff at.
100%. So next up, we got a web swing. We've seen this before on Miles. You just place yourself within 3. So you combine that with his long move. We'll go into it in just a second, but that combined with his long move, and then he adds 2 dice to his attack roll. Like, not even Angela can keep up with this guy. The next thing we got is the Witty Banter, which is when an enemy character within 3 of this character is attacking an allied character, so that includes himself. You can use this superpower. You could basically re-roll one of their attack dice. So this is particularly nasty. I didn't really clue this together until you pointed this out to me on our cast, that when you're doing this, you pick the die, right? So you can pick the wild, or you can pick the whatever to re-roll. The only thing you can't re-roll is a skull, I guess. But that's really powerful.
It's really, really powerful. And I know, like, if we flip his card, which is identical, it does say when an enemy character within 3 of this character is attacking this character or an allied character, we have confirmation from the rules forum that that's a bit of a typo, or not a typo, but just like the card is whatever. I was trying to get these tokens off of it. This is active on himself always. You can always Witty Banter when you yourself are being attacked, you or your allies. And that's where it's so crucial to, yes, you can save a damage a lot of time, but I'm going to talk about this right now real quick. So you have Amazing Spider-Man, right? And he has 1 or 2 power on him. You have to know that with a 5 dice strike against Peter, because of his mastered spider sense, which we'll talk about in a second, you have over a 50% chance of taking no damage at all, 55 actually, on just a standard 5 dice strike. And you really have upwards of 80% of only taking 1 damage. So if you are looking like you have 1 or 2 damage coming in, a lot of times there is this sort of feeling that, hey, I want to spend that 1 power to take no damage. But remember how big power generation is in this game. Sometimes taking 1 on Peter is totally fine, because essentially if you're trying to use Witty Banter to reroll that die, attack dice are more powerful. Like, there are more faces that will hit you on attack dice than defense dice. You could be burning a power that, that you could be gaining just by taking 1 damage. So suddenly you're up a net power on that. You should be saving Witty Banters to kill wilds most of the time, or protect somebody that will almost certainly be KO'd or whatever. I think it's a trap to be Witty Bantering every single time, because if you can get flushed with enough power to do whatever a spider can, that attack is just so good that it's worth it to keep it around.
Exactly. And plus, if you just take him 1 every turn, it's 6 attacks you're going to need to kill him. So that's 6 actions that the opposing team's wasted, not on the rest of your team. So you kind of want to take that chip damage. So the other thing we've got is you can reroll any number of defense or dodge dice. Important note, this includes Mystic. So he is very, very, very tanky. And he has Warcrawler. So really, really powerful card. The next thing we got is his leadership. This is a really powerful leadership because it basically can displace, but I'll let you go through it, Farmer.
Yeah, so once per turn during an allied character's activation, you can pay a power and choose an enemy character within 2. The chosen character gains the slow special condition, which is great. If they already have slow, and you can place that enemy character, within 1 of its current position and remove the slow. So basically what that's doing is you're creating a range 2 bubble around your own characters where you can drop these slows and then decide to reposition them. It also goes extremely well with the standout card for Web Warriors, which is all webbed up, where you pay 3 power and everybody gains a slow within 3, and then you increase your attack dice. So what that means is at the start of your turn, you could web up a bunch of people, get your bonus attack dice, and then move 1. And then everyone else can get bonus attacks and then move them afterwards. This is it's tough. Miles versus Peter, which we've talked people have been talking about their leadership abilities. Miles makes Peter nigh untouchable. Like
It's going to be
he's
nasty.
incredible. Like if you shift the calculator to 5 dice with any rerolls, which is essentially what you're doing with Miles, you're looking at 2/3 of the time you're taking no damage from 5 dice strikes. It's just crazy. You're just never like it's not even worth it to hit Peter with that against Miles. But this is a much more nuanced leadership ability that requires some, I would say, some thinking and roster building, which we'll talk about in a second, and some really savvy positioning play in order to maximize and make the most of.
Exactly. So it's not just something you can just spam out. You got to really pick who you want to do it to. But that's a really good point you just put there. Of like, I think a lot of people will be attacking into the Amazing Spider-Man with a 5 dice strike, which is, you know, your most common builder, thinking that they're going to be doing some serious work on him. But if you look at the math, it's actually a bad idea, right?
I mean, there is a huge question on how you deal with Amazing Spider-Man when he comes out into the game. And I'll actually, one of the guys that I forgot we needed to put a special mention into is Loki, or anybody that can toss Root out, because you're going to be rooting. You're going to want Spidey to be paying more for that witty banter. But really, you're just going to have to accept that he can go anywhere he wants and he's going to hit like a truck. And it's going to be tough to bring him down unless you have somebody who has overwhelming offensive dice. 4 and 5 dice attacks are just not really going to cut it against him. He's so consistent on defense.
Yeah, he's an absolute beast. We'll swap over to the little tier list now. So we've got some characters in here that Farmer went through before, and we've chosen the ones that we think that Amazing Spider-Man is going to be particularly strong against, and the ones that he's probably going to want to avoid. And we've got some synergies in here, and we've got some special mentions. So first one, I'll hit this one, is Medusa. Amazing Spider-Man is incredibly strong against. Like Farmer said, you can target the wild. So you can hit Medusa when she's attacking and get rid of her flurry. So that's the thing that makes her the most powerful. It's a 5 dice attack, which we already know he's almost immortal to, and you can ping the flurry away. So if Medusa sees a Amazing Spider-Man on the other side of the board, she doesn't want anything to do with him. Next up, we got Carnage. Do you want to go through Carnage?
Well, I was just going to say, it's worth noting that any character that is really, like, Peter's going to be really strong against anybody that's susceptible to getting hit by overwhelming offensive attacks. We're talking kind of specifically against these characters that Peter himself does something that those other characters don't. Like, any highly physical character is going to dunk on Rocket Raccoon, right? Like, Peter's going to be very good against that. But these characters in particular are excellent. Carnage, despite Pete not being able to roll his crits into there, you're able to witty banter off a lot of the wilds and a lot of the triggers that Carnage uses to make the most of. Going into Carnage, that 4 physical defense can be a little tough, but Carnage is one of the most offensively heavy focused characters in the game, and he will have a tough time chewing through Peter. And that's something that it'll be fun to look at when we see, Spider foes versus Spider-Man and everything.
Oh yeah, it's going to be great. Once Carnage and like Craven and stuff are out, Spider foe is going to be an absolute. It's going to be cool to see him actually kind of at the forefront of things. Next up, we got Valkyrie for the same reason, right? Like, she's a bit of an offensive monster, but because you can target the things that she needs, she has flurry on her big attack. She also has Warrior of Legend, which is crits and wilds can generate into another hit. So I'm not sure on the timing on it. You might know, but if you can target the wild before, you might stop 2 hits, right?
I believe that I think the timing on on the modify opponent's dice step is you do their stuff before their things trigger at all. But I'm not sure how that interacts with Warrior of Legend, because Warrior of Legend actually does get around MODOK before the wilds are canceled.
That's a good point. I'll do some research into that one and find out.
Double check. The reason that he's good against Valk, though, is kind of in general, characters that are really, really strong at just range 2, Peter is excellent with, because he can attack them at range 3, then move out of their range to be able to kind of make a move towards him and deal a lot of damage. So, like, for example, if we think Valkyrie is right here by F, right, on the table, you might have to switch screens back. Yeah, so if Peter is just within 3 and outside of her 2 to be able to deal, he can attack her, and then we take a look at this movement, this long move away here, or he could even web swing, right? He could double attack her and web swing. Suddenly, Valk needs to move and then charge to even like burn power to charge to get that second attack, just to get into range to attack him.
And that's just to have one go at him as well.
Yeah. Any of these characters that are exclusive range 2 beaters, Peter's going to be good at, because he'll be able to poke them and run away.
That's so powerful. Plus, even his range 2 beater attack has a medium advance on it, so he can even happily go into that range 2. Next up, we've got our lovely Okoye. I'm a big fan of her because I play Wakanda, but basically, like exactly what you said, right? She's a range 2 martial artist. He has a range 3 strike. He will absolutely dumpster her when the time comes. He hits hard. He has throws built in on all of his attacks. He can beef his dice up from a web swing, and he can do it all outside of her best defensive mods. So really kind of terrifying if you're an Okoye player there.
And of course, sometimes Okoye is able to, another reason she's in here, she comes in with her rerolls and her big spender attack. You can pop, with her 4 dice spender, you know, getting that wild is usually a really good thing for you. But if you can witty banter off that wild, suddenly there's no flurry. You're saving yourself an entire other attack.
Exactly, and it's not even that big of an attack. It's usually the pierce/flurry that comes off it that makes it so powerful. Next up, we got... go ahead.
I was going to say, if we're just talking, by the way, about what it looks like for 4 dice going at Peter, you're looking at a 68% chance of taking no damage on 4 dice attacks against him.
If I was a numbers guy, I would take that bet. If you were Travis, you'd probably still have a go at it, right?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you only have a 1% chance of dealing 4 damage, but have at it.
Which is basically 100% to him. He's like, so you're telling me there's a chance?
There's a chance, yep.
So last of all, for strong against, we got Thor. It's exact same thing, right, guys? He's a range 2 beater. He has wild triggers on his attacks, so you can really negate a lot of his things that he does. Does best, you know, where he does multiple throws a turn. You can stop most of that from happening with some pretty good odds from happening into your Amazing Spider-Man or your friends, because don't forget the quip or the witty banter can be done to your allies as well. So it's pretty strong.
Worth noting on Thor, his 4 Asgard attack requires damage to be dealt to put the stagger on. Pete hates stagger. He really does, which is why Black Cat is actually one that he's got to look out for. Losing action economy on Peter is a big no-no. You don't want that at all. I would give also the caveat on Thor is if he's in Asgard, which he usually is, they can shake off that slow that you're putting on them. But that's not always a bad thing, because that means you're burning through their power generation in order to do that.
Exactly, and it's not taking wounds off either. So your damage is going to start sticking. So next we're going to hit into...
Sticking, I see what you did there. Good one.
That actually wasn't on purpose. That's just my natural witty banter, mate.
There you go. Oh, he does it again.
Oh, the two-time.
Wow.
Oh, it's so
Momentum.
Good. Oh, that's it. All right. Next up, we got the things that Spider-Man is probably going to not want to see on the other side of the board. We haven't seen him in the meta yet. We've seen some games with him, but we haven't seen him actually in the wild yet. So... Scarlet Witch, right? Most of her shenanigans are built around long range. So all of her attacks are range 4. I think her big attack's range 3, so she can go toe to toe with him. And it's all built off skulls, which he can't re-roll. So there's a lot of things that she's going to be able to stick to him that he doesn't really want. So that's one there. Next up, we got She-Hulk. She doesn't need to deal damage to put the slow condition off her standard strike.
Right.
You've probably got some games with Amazing Spider-Man. I'm assuming you don't want to be slowed.
No, getting slowed is one of the worst things that can happen to Peter. It's so bad that, you suddenly need to start using your web swing to move around and everything. But it is one of those conditions that you actually consider shaking, because he stays alive for so long. Slow is not good for him, so you have to be careful of that.
Absolutely, and she can probably easily apply it because it's usually coming with a special delivery or something like that, so it's going to be difficult to try and avoid it. Next up, we have Corvus. He's got a decent attacks. He is a range 2 beater for the most part, unless you're doing his big attack, but he's a Reality Stone character, so same as Scarlet Witch, right? It's all going to be based off of skulls. It's difficult to avoid.
Yeah, you any of these things where skulls count as like we said with Scarlet Witch, successes are going to be rough for Pete.
Absolutely. Plus, he can count blanks as success, so the witty banter is going to be less useful there. There's not many times where you're going to be able to successfully re-roll him into a not a hit. You can still make him get rid of his wilds, which will help, but it's going to be difficult to stop the large amounts of damage coming your way. Next up, we have Venom. Venom, just standard, you cannot modify your defense dice against. So, and he's got a range 3 strike as well. So it's
huge. Yeah. That I love how thematic it is that Venom is going to give Amazing Spider-Man headaches, because traditionally you're looking at you're looking at Spider-Man as being like, oh, I'm 55% of the time on 5 dice strikes not taking any damage. But suddenly, you ready for this? That drops on when Venom's attacking him. You go to 36% for no damage on a 5 dice, and you're getting the bleed. But the real numbers to look at is suddenly you're at 22% for 1, 20% for 2, and 13% for 3 damage. Like, Venom actually can mess up Peter, which is something that you have to be aware of.
Fitting, very fitting. Plus, he has the range 4 like web pull that pulls him in medium, so he can pull your Peter into the rest of your squad, which could be dangerous. Plus, just going back to Carnage, does Carnage have any of those shenanigans where he has to attack Peter Parker, or is that only Goblin? Or no, Carnage is Goblin. Venom.
Yeah.
Cool.
Carnage has to attack Eddie Brock. I really would want to put Green Goblin into weak against, but Green Goblin's weak against Peter, like that.
Yeah.
Foe, like, obviously Peter has a much weaker defense when Goblin is attacking him, but like whatever, that means you're just getting power. Peter can easily dunk on Goblin.
Yeah, plus
like, it's fine.
Goblin has a standard 4 dice strikes. Like it's almost laughable going into Peter Parker, like the Amazing Spider-Man. So it's almost making the Goblin useless because he has to attack him. Like there's no choice. So we should have actually put that in the strong against, but it's all good.
Well, I don't think Peter is allowed to. I'd have to check Goblin's card, but I don't think Peter is allowed to do rerolls against him.
Ooh.
So I do think let me pull it up real quick so I don't give misinformation.
It's a superpower that everybody read when it first came out and just went, this will never occur. Nobody plays Peter Parker.
Yeah, so this character may modify or reroll skull results and may reroll any number of attack dice. So actually Peter's still okay. So Goblin gets his attack boosted, but Peter, it doesn't affect Peter's defenses. So yeah, you're still fine.
Yeah.
If you're curious about the math on that, a 4-die attack with any rerolls into a 4-die with any rerolls is, and I'm saying any, obviously if you're not running Miles, you can't reroll those skulls, but this is a close approximation of the math. It's still 50% chance you're not taking any damage.
That's pretty good odds. That's pretty good odds.
Still pretty good.
Lastly, we have Angela. She's almost as fast as Peter, so it's difficult for him when he grabs that extract and decides to actually leave. If they have an Angela, she can actually give chase and have a go at it. Plus, she also has some decent attacks, right? She has 6 dice strikes. She doesn't care about wilds or anything like that, so she can really stick some damage through, and it ends up teleporting her right, and she has a massive throw, which, it doesn't affect Peter that much, but it still could be dangerous to start taking those size 4 throws coming at you.
I have a couple honorable mentions that I thought of that I do just want to add. The main one just being Loki. If you're really getting frustrated by the witty banter of Amazing Spider-Man, Loki is a really, really good bet for dealing with him.
And Mr. Sinister as well.
Yeah, anybody that can throw a root on him or make him spend more power, that will neuter him into just being a killing machine instead of a killing machine that also is annoying you.
Oh man, just what I want to see, more Loki. Loki is one of those characters that I end up dazing really quickly, and then I'm stuck with him on his flip side, and I can't roll crits in, and it just gets worse.
Mm-hmm. Also worth mentioning that Peter doesn't like any of the things put on him. Hex, Incinerate, any condition is a bad condition for Amazing Spider-Man. He doesn't like it at all. So that's definitely something. There are good counters to him. That's why Scarlet Witch is something he doesn't want to see. Hex is so bad for him because he can't get his crits in there, and he's going to roll crits. So
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That actually is a good point. We might actually throw Asgard into those synergies as well. But that brings us to synergies. So obviously, Webheads or Web Warriors, he is synergized well with. He has his own leadership for them. He has leadership with Miles as well, which just gives him an additional reroll after his rerolls. So he can become, like you said, almost immortal to your standard attacks. Next one we brought up was potentially he might be in Avengers. So Avengers definitely. It also gives him a 1 power web swing, and he doesn't generate 2 power turns. So this can help him a lot to get into positions he needs to be.
Yeah, and that would be really. I don't know if I would take him in Avengers if he's not affiliated, but I really do think there's potential because this is late in his career, Spidey. He's been in the Avengers so many times that we see him affiliated there.
Exactly. Plus, it would just be cool to see him in with the rest of the boys, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Now, this is the one that made my heart swell with just absolute pride. Is that you said he synergizes well with Wakanda? Do you want to give us a reason why?
So, oh my God. So he's. I mean, if you're looking at Wakanda, if you already play Wakanda, I know you usually want to go wider and get that control, but Pete has incredible attacks that he would love to get some offensive rerolls on. And more than that, you are now affecting your opponent's dice when they're attacking you, and you're affecting your own dice when you're being attacked. So it compounds the rerolls and the strengths that Wakanda already has defensively. Like, you could argue that with enough power, Wakanda is going to be more defensive than a Miles-led Web Warriors with
Absolutely.
Shuri and all that stuff. So he is just, rerolls are really good in the game. We don't have to tell you twice, but I just think he already fits into things Wakanda does very well and makes them potentially better.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, just the idea of like a Amazing Spider-Man with Wakanda leadership reroll, his own rerolls, Shuri rerolls. I don't want to know the math, but if it's less than 100% to not take damage, I'll be shocked.
Well, he can do things because of that. You can put him in places that you'd normally never put players or characters in the middle. You know how sometimes there's that dance in like round 3 or 2 or 3 where it's like, I could move this guy here first, but then he's just gonna have 8 guys attack him and get dazed. Peter can take a ton of attacks in Wakanda under that situation, and so now your opponent has to really scratch their head and go, oh, do I really want to burn all these attacks on Peter given the math? That's interesting if you're a more aggressive, gambly player.
That speaks to me and Travis 100%. Plus, it gives us a rock-solid Mystic defense as well, which is not something to put your nose up at for Wakanda. As you would know, they are normally weak to Mystic pretty heavily. Lastly, we got Black Order. Yep. Do you want to run me through that one?
So, Black Order at higher threat levels, you've got Thanos, Corvus, and Prox, but one of the downsides to Black Order, despite Thanos being able to get his double moves with the Reality Gem, they do have a little bit of a mobility issue too. And in terms of attrition, Peter can move really fast, get anywhere on the table, be an extract monster like Angela, grab stuff and run away, and not be killed and not have stuff taken from him. But also, if he wants to be a hitter like the rest of the team, he can. And sometimes with Black Order, the way you beat them is sort of out controlling them a little bit, and because they're just going to deal heaps and heaps of damage. But with Peter, you're able to get that extract, run, and then when your opponent is forced to kind of come to you, that's when the Black Order really, really shines, because their attrition is bar none the best in the game.
Exactly. You can boost up Peter's dice. Peter's witty banter on the rest of the Black Order squad, because they all have that immortality, like take 1 less damage, means that most of those characters will start to only suffer a single damage at a time. So they start to become like really frustrating to try and kill. So he would be particularly disgusting in Black Order. Plus, on his injured side, it's now a 9 dice strike or a 12 dice spender. Like, it's ugh.
Yeah. Let's hit through some of these special mentions because you're about to lose me, buddy.
Done deal. All right, we'll just smoke through these ones real quick. So we got Zemo. Zemo is a special mention because he can actually... most of these guys will be here because they're going to be very good at using Amazing Spider-Man's leadership. I'll just start with that. So Zemo, he can get to range 1. He always is flush with power, so he can afford to spend the power to apply the slow or to apply the movement from the slow. So Zemo, really strong.
Specifically, like with all these Zemo, Iron Fist, Lockjaw, and Quicksilver, you're looking at characters that are flush with power to benefit with his leadership ability. They're cheap, and they usually are good in range 2. You like having them in range 2. So you're definitely gonna be, and for all of them except for Lockjaw, you don't really have a good way to reposition your opponents. So it's just a perfect storm with all these characters of being able to be like, okay, I generate a lot of power. This is excellent. Now you're slowed, and someone else can come and reposition you. It just gives you a lot of options. You want characters that are flush with power if you can help it.
Exactly. Plus Lockjaw can even bring the person who will do the repositioning with him, right?
Yes. Yep. Totally.
So powerful. Well, Ryan, thank you very much for coming on, mate. I didn't want to touch Amazing Spider-Man without you because I know that you have put more effort than anybody into this character, so it'd be fitting for you to do the review on him. But thank you very much for coming on, mate.
Thanks so much. I know that I'll be playing probably his leadership ability exclusively for a while, and I don't know if that means that I'll lose a bunch of games, but I'm excited to put him through his paces and really just show like how much of an effect he can have on the table with his leadership specifically.
Absolutely. I think you'll lose the first couple, and then once you start to figure out the timing of when to do it and when not to do it, you'll be an absolute monster. Yeah. Well,
thanks for having me, man.
No worries, mate. And thanks, guys, for watching. Peace out.